right. Well, hey everybody. It is Wes Hagen is off today, and in his place is his well-groomed doppelganger. I guess I am Wes Hagen, and I am the consulting winemaker as well as the brand ambassador for the Miller Family Wine Company. And welcome to Day Drinking. Very special show today. Not really having much of an agenda today. In fact, we're just going to be talking a little bit about wine and dogs. And if you have not met my wife Chanda, say hello to all the wonderful people, Chanda. Hello. And I'm going to increase this, get this full size so we see all of this. And obviously, if you guys have questions, please put them in the question area. If you're watching this later, you're more than welcome to put some questions in either these videos on YouTube, or you can go ahead and throw them up on the comments here, and I will go through them, and we will get you guys as many answers as you can. So, hey, Dawn. Dawn's here. Nice to see Dawn. And looks like we've got our friend Josh Niemeyer down. Take in Baja? Yeah, absolutely. I think Baja wines are vastly underappreciated, and Baja California wines, hopefully. I'm looking forward to the day where Josh can take me down and show me what's going on down there. I also have a dream of going down to Oaxaca to go on a mezcal tour, and maybe to go to Jalisco and learn about tequila. I'm afraid that my liver might not be able to handle it, but awesome. I know. Clean shaven. Tell you the truth, the honest reason is I just was on Fox News. I mean, careful how I say that. This isn't. It is. It's an apolitical show in general, unless I let something slip of my classic, sort of classic liberalism. Which has changed the world since the 17th century. But yeah, our local news affiliate wanted to interview me about wine tasting rooms being open outside, how I felt about it, how business is going. So it's exactly what I did about 25 minutes ago. So I'll probably go ahead and post it up on the Facebook page before. And how are you doing this evening, Chanda?
Good.
You're doing well.
I am.
Anything you'd like to share? How are the baby bunnies?
They're getting big.
I know, we should almost have brought them in. We are so nice to our bunnies. We do not torture them for your benefit yet. But how many bunnies?
4.
4 bunnies. And
4 baby bunnies.
4 baby bunnies.
Baby bunnies.
How fit? I mean, they're what, 2 pounds? They're kind of big.
They're little, they started out about like, yay.
They were like little naked hamsters.
Now they're like little fuzz buckets.
And I had read someplace that one reason why rabbits were known to be sort of good luck charms is that they were born with their eyes open. Turns out that was total BS.
They're not.
They are not.
Eyes closed.
What, 4 days, 5 days?
It was like almost a week, but not quite a week. Somewhere around there.
And because it is Day Drinking with Wes Hagen, I want to make sure all of you are feeling like I'm enabling you properly. This was brought to me by my friend the Galperts. Thank you guys. I thoroughly appreciate it. But I thought this was such an appropriate beer. It is a high octane double IPA from La Cumbre Brewing. And you're thinking La Cumbre Brewing must be in Santa Barbara, California, because we have La Cumbre Plaza and all the areas around La Cumbre. This is actually brewed in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Really cool looking label too. La Cumbre Brewing. Boom. So it is officially day drinking. I'm officially drinking, and it's officially day outside. I hope wherever you are, the weather is not horrifically hot. I've been seeing a lot of posts on Facebook and around today where I've been seeing 100 degrees, 105 degrees, 107 with a heat index, high humidity. People my friend Nick from New York saying, I don't want to go out today. Well, think about how your vineyard feels, Nick. Actually, your vineyard is shut down at 102 degrees. Those vines were not going to be doing much photosynthesis at that point. They shut down because they're afraid everything. But I'm about to try my first New Mexico beer, not in New Mexico. I drank a few last time I was there. Was not as excited about New Mexico beer as I was beers from Minnesota, beers from California, beers from Colorado. But pretty excited about this. So again, today is all about kind of open season, talking a little bit about any questions you have about wine and any questions you have about dogs. So, Phil says you may have some cans for me. I'll save you a can of this stuff, as long as it's good. It smells good. It smells really nice and hoppy.
smell it, but I'm not tasting it.
Chanda doesn't like IPA. That's good. That is very, 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 very high. My guess is 90 to 100.
Not for me.
90 to 100. It's got a lot of bitterness. It's a double IPA, so it's made in the same style as you would expect from Pliny the Elder or the Axeman from Minnesota. But it's clean, it's bright, and it's got some alcohol in it. So my the second half of the show is always more interesting than the first. Awesome. Let's talk about wine and dog. So thank you guys. We did get a number of questions sent in to begin with, and this is going to probably be as much about dogs as it is going to be about wine. But if you guys have any questions about wine, I did get at least one really good question about wine, which we'll get to. And that
we do have to say I got one dog down here, Miss Kestrel. She's on the floor, and we have another one behind the camera, Peregrine, all curled up on a chair.
Yeah, Peregrine.
So
if you want to
they're
come over.
watching. Maybe they'll come in and say hi.
We'll force the dogs at one point to come and
Can't
say
have a
hello.
show about dogs with no dogs in it.
Okay, so here is a beautifully wide open question that Chanda will love answering. I'm getting a puppy that will be 10 weeks old in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, they're picking up the dog at 10 weeks old. That's when, and it's a shepherd mix that it's supposed to end up being about 60 to 75 pounds. Can you take me through the first day and night when I pick up the puppy and how to start training it out right?
Whew,
I know.
That would
That's a
be
deep
the
question.
entire hour or longer. I would say the number one thing you want to think about is how you're going to potty train that puppy. Because of course, they don't know. They have no clue what you want. So you need to find a way to take that puppy out all the time, all day, all night, after a nap, after eating, after playing, after anything, like every hour. I would say you might be able to go a couple hours over the night, but you don't want to let that puppy out of your sight for even 1 second until it is 100% potty trained. So loose puppy running around the house, no, never, not for like months. So if you really want it reliably potty trained, you're going to want to crate train, and that doesn't mean shoving your dog in a crate and it crying and being miserable. You want to find a way to make that crate its happy place. There's lots of YouTube videos on crate games. Just search in YouTube crate games, and they will show you how to make your puppy love its crate. And then if your puppy cannot be in a crate, like that's a great place to like toss the pup like at night or when you can't watch it. But when you want your puppy, like you don't want to lock your puppy in a crate all day. So have your puppy on a leash attached to you with your eyeballs looking at it at all times. And you see that puppy even start to pee or something, you grab it up and you run it outside. So that's your number one thing, is potty training in a way that the dog can understand. You don't want that puppy to have even one accident in your house, or you have to basically start over repeatedly. So those people that have puppies that like pee in their house all the time, like you don't want that. So that's the number one thing.
How about when the dog gets in the car and starts whining, dog comes home, starts crying because it's away from its mom and its family for the first time?
Well, if you do crate games and you're interacting with the puppy, you're not going to get as much of that separation from mom whining thing. It means you have to give it a lot of attention. You can't just like toss it somewhere and leave it. If you make the crate a happy place, also right from the beginning, the puppy is not going to like be upset that they're in there. If your puppy is upset that it's in the crate or it's separated from you, you have to train that. That's not something that you just wait out or just deal with. Like that, everything has to be done in a way that makes sense to the puppy, not what makes sense to the human. So you have to figure out what makes sense for the puppy.
And then as far as like, I remember you've heard people like, you can put a ticking clock with it when it sleeps, or a warm water bottle, any of that stuff?
What I do is I crate train my puppies for the nighttime. So they sleep in a crate. I put the crate right next to my bed. And that way I can, like when I go to put the pup in, to take out the pup for the last time at night, go to put it in the crate, I'll often just kind of hang my arm down and put my fingers through the bars and kind of just make sure the puppy knows it's not alone, it's not, locked in. If you're doing crate games during the day and you're playing it, it's getting happy in there, then by the time that puppy is tired out in the evening, you can let your hand hang there, and usually they'll drift away and then you can sleep. But set alarms, take that puppy out several times during the night. They don't have the control of their bladder that you want them to have. They don't have it yet. So you have to continually take them out until they have the control, until they have the understanding.
So we understand crate games, which are to make the crate seem really fun. Happy place. So when they go in the crate, they get treats, they get their toys, they get chewies.
Well, just follow crate games.
Follow crate games. And then you were talking a little bit about umbilical training, which is to keep the dog connected to you, so there's no chance that it can get away.
Yeah, you never want, if your puppy's on a leash and you're holding the leash and your eyeballs are looking at the puppy, and okay, now you can read, but like keep one eye on that puppy, whatever you're doing, watching TV. As long as it's on a leash attached to you, it can't sneak off to pee somewhere. So that's how I do it. I just, wander around the house with a pup on a long leash and just watch it.
And this, first part of this comment is this, and wait for a second, it's a two-part question. Is this the greatest time in the history of the world, in our lifetimes maybe, to train a puppy, since we're in
yes and no
#plague. Besides the crate game and the umbilical training, how would you also, what else would you start training, and at what general age?
Oh God,
I know
that is such a long.
Your dogs have 100 different things.
In the very, very beginning, I basically teach like two things to a 2 to 10 week old puppy for the first week or two. I teach them their name, so. To them, they're not even going to fully understand it at all. So you're just going to say the name, and when they look at you, give them a treat. Say their name, when they look at you, give them a treat. So you just want to teach them their name. All the teaching them their name means is that when you say the sound, they pay attention to you. So I would do that. And then I do like to teach, like, sit. Just, like, one thing. Oh, my God. Poor little nugget.
Jake asked for more Peregrine content. This is the little Italian.
But I work on bonding with my puppy and potty training for like a straight month above all else.
Just fun.
Just
fun and pee outside.
Snuggle, pee outside. Snuggle, pee outside. Like snuggle, pee outside. Teach them their name. Here, I'll take it.
Okay. Sounded like he wanted to go someplace.
Oh, come here. Just really simple. You just want to get them comfortable away from their mom in your house. There's no stressful training, and your puppy must sit down, stay, retrieve. Like, no, you don't need to worry about that.
And Jake is here too. I've spent many times with all of us talking about how wonderful Jake is at the Los Olivos Cafe where he works. I think he's furloughed currently, but he's one of the better wine salespeople in Santa Barbara County. He was asking for more Peregrine content, and I just played disc golf with him yesterday. Jake, here's a good story, dude. Do you know I left my entire cart at Evergreen Park and didn't realize that I had left $800 worth of disc golf equipment on the side of the road, and got every little piece back. So yesterday was a challenging day. And then we had a really good question from Nick. Hey, Chanda and Wes. Chanda, question. Any way to get the bulldog out of the bulldog? By the way, every school I've ever been affiliated with from a collegiate level has been basically bulldog. So I am University of Redlands, bulldog. I teach at Allen Hancock College, bulldogs. Yeah, so we have an old English bulldog who is great with people, but get him on a leash or a walk and have someone come by with another dog, and I have to hold him for all he's worth. Yeah. He's trying to protect us, but it makes taking him out difficult.
Yeah. So you have what's called a leash reactive dog, and that needs to be handled by a professional. I would find, you can Google canine behaviorists in your area, and I would suggest working with only a person that does positive only training. You don't want anyone that's going to put a prong collar on your dog or cause your dog pain. A dog that's leash reactive like that will be made worse by punishment. That needs to be very clear. But there are ways. Oops, sorry, I kicked the table. There are ways to help dogs with leash reactivity And it's fairly simple if you know what you're doing, which is why if you don't know what you're doing, you can mess it up real bad. That's not good. So I would hire a professional. It might only take a couple sessions with a private trainer who can teach you what to do when your dog does that, and then you just practice it, and before long that behavior will be able to fade. I've done it with several dogs, so it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Kestrel, I mean, she's a service dog, but she's just absolutely fascinated by other living things. So
there's some dogs that are leash reactive, which is what yours is saying, because you're saying he's trying to protect you, and that's a little sketch. And then there's some dogs that are reactive, like in a happy way. That's mine. Just like butt moving, like, oh, love me, let me play. When my girl was out working, if she saw dogs in places where there were supposed to be dogs, she'd be like, oh yeah, dogs, whatever. She wouldn't care. If she suddenly saw a dog in a business where there's not normally dogs, she would get really excited, and the tail would start wagging, she'd start play bowing, and I was like completely humiliated. It was terrible. It took many a time to work through that, but at this point she sees another dog and she's like, whatever.
All right, so we got a question a little bit about wine. Bob is asking, I want to make a wine without any added sulfites. Any suggestions? My suggestion is to use sulfites. Sulfite, or unless you want to start using terebinth again and starting making Retsina. If you love the flavor of Retsina, so let's talk about your options for stabilizing a wine. First, the most modern would be Velcorin, which is a product I believe made by Bayer Corporation, and Velcorin at very low doses, around 1 part per million, will actually sterilize your wine and keep it from ever having the possibility of having re-fermentation issues.
Kestrel's about to come up under the table.
If you don't want to use, really don't want to use SO2, you could look at potassium sorbate. Sorbate is yet again another chemical. The first thing I would ask you, Bob, is what's your fundamental problem with sulfur dioxide? Because most people don't understand how sulfur dioxide functions in wine, and they believe that it can trigger asthma. If you are severely asthmatic, you can have an issue with sulfites, but for a normal, healthy human being, sulfites have no negative impact. For you to actually have, I did the math one time with an enzymologist. We figured out like 22 bottles of wine in a fairly short amount of time could produce enough SO2 to have an impact on the human body. But in general, the legal limit of bound SO2, total SO2 in a wine is 200 parts per million. So we're talking about incredibly small amounts. The active amount of SO2 in a wine is usually between 20 and 100 parts, depending on the pH. Number one, you don't want to, I would say, do you really want to go SO2 free, or do you want to make a wine that requires the smallest amount of sulfur dioxide possible? That's what I would do, which would be sparkling wine, none added, ever in the, except maybe at the crusher, to really end up with almost no SO2 in the wine, or high acid, low pH wine. A low pH wine at 3.0 pH, the SO2 needed for molecular stability is 10 parts per million. At 4.0 pH, 3 pH is like champagne. Very, very structured, good acidity, noticeable acidity. 4.0 would be like a soft Napa Cab, just like a marshmallow of a wine with almost no acid structure to it at all. That requires 100 parts free. And to get 100 parts free in the wine, you got to add so much damn SO2 to get there to begin with. You're going to probably have that level of SO2 that could theoretically be talked about as being, okay, that's a fairly excessive amount of SO2. Still legal, but right up to that 200 parts. So the first question I would ask is why. Second of all, I would look into potassium sorbate add to see if that could help you. Careful filtration, bone effing dry, high acid. That's how you get there. Other than that, you can add seawater. That's what some of the Romans did. Yeah. You can put olive oil on the top of your bottles to prevent oxidation. And then you pour off a little bit of olive oil into a bread plate, and then you pour the wine and you dip your olive oil. And it was kind of a cool thing, I mean, topping up amphorae before they figured out terebinth, before they figured out burning sulfur. So sulfur dioxide was really invented by cultures that were in an area of high volcanism. And in an area where you have a lot of volcanoes, chances are as you walk up the volcano, you're going to see a vent with all this yellow, crazy yellow powder around it. And that was the natural source for sulfur. Human beings, being brilliant, because we had no internet or horrible politicians to distract us, we figured out something amazing. There were no bugs, no rats, no spiders, nothing living in these vents. Sulfur killed everything. So we began to bring the sulfur back to our homes and burn it within our homes to fumigate our homes, to get the bugs out, to get the rats out, to get the mice out, to make our homes safe. So sulfur was used as a desiccant and basically as, basically to fumigate. And then what we found out is, as we were reloading amphorae of wine onto ships in ancient Phoenicia, the Canaanites, as well as the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians, they figured out, instead of waiting for those amphorae to dry before refilling, they could desiccate it with sulfur, and the sulfur would dry out the amphorae. And then when they filled the wine, there was a sort of mistake that changed the world, like ivory soap, like white Zinfandel, look them up. The mistake was they just desiccated the vessel, but when they filled it, what they didn't know is all this free SO2 went into solution of the wine, and when the wine arrived in Syria or wherever it was being sold, it was worth a hell of a lot more money because they opened the amphora. They're like, oh my God, this is the freshest, best wine I've ever tasted. Well, they didn't know exactly why, but they knew every time that they used sulfur to desiccate those vessels, that's exactly what happened. So that'll give you a little bit of an idea. Do some research into SO2. If you think that it's causing headaches, you're probably wrong. Unless you have a really, really severe allergy to sulfur dioxide, it is an incredibly safe sterilant in wine. So that's what I'll say about SO2.
Linus mentioned that the military isn't even using prong collars anymore, so.
Oh, that's good to know. And I love the idea that the military is actually allowing some dogs that work in war zones to go back with their handlers, because, talk about a heartbreak. Reading some of the writing of some of these dog handlers in Afghanistan, dog handlers in Iraq, and then basically either leaving their dogs there or they were putting the dogs down because it was cheaper than flying them home. These are freaking war heroes, man. These are dogs. We're Americans. This is Old Yeller culture. This is not, I shouldn't say Old Yeller because that's about, taking the dog around the...
Our upper camera is crooked and wobbling when you bang the table, just so you know.
Doing a live video with a woman with a little OCD, it'll make sure the picture is beautiful.
Well, it's crooked.
Okay.
No, that one.
I love the fact that my chair is higher than yours because for once in my life,
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, she's in.
For once in your life, you're taller than me?
Back before the wheelchair,
I'm only 4'3" at this point.
Yeah, 6'0". It doesn't matter if she's in a chair or not. She's still got. She's
I'm still not taller than you.
Legs up to there. Anyways, let's go on. Let's ask another dog question. This, I think, was the best one I got. One sentence, just 10 words or less. How can you tell when a dog needs to go see a vet?
If you are wondering whether your dog needs to go see a vet, go see a vet. It's that simple. If there's some tiny little minor thing that you can handle, like an itty bitty teeny cut or something, sure. But
so let's go backwards too. Okay. For what do you, because Chanda was a vet tech 7 years?
I don't know, a while.
Many years. What do you keep in the house that would be helpful for every pet owner to have, just in case they needed something to triage a dog before it got to the vet, or to take care of little cuts, scrapes? What do you look for? What are the most common things that people miss that really hurt dogs?
Well, that's two questions.
Okay.
What do I keep in the house?
Sure.
I just keep gauze, sterile gauze, and there's this stuff. It's called vet wrap, and it's a stretchy, slightly rubbery bandage that sticks to itself. So if you have a dog that gets some kind of wound and you need to get it to the vet in order to get it, stitched or taken care of or whatever. You can slap a piece of gauze, wrap this vet wrap around it, it sticks to itself, and then take the dog onto the vet. But as far as like, an ear infection, you should never treat that on your own. Crazy goopy red eyes, no. You got a broken tooth, no. I mean, there's very little things that you can do at home. It would be just much safer and better to see a vet. Better to see a vet and the vet go, oh, this is no big deal, than to not take your dog to a vet and then have it get very, very ill. So I just go to the vet if you're questioning it.
And things to look for. I know that whenever we go out to play disc golf in an area that has a lot of like dry grass and stuff, I mean, I know that certain things can get up their nose and their ears and their pads.
Here in California, we've got a weed called foxtails, this type of grass, and foxtails are horrible for dogs. They can get wedged in, they can get stuck in fur and then actually burrow through the skin. If your dog is like sneezing like rapidly and snorting blood everywhere, it's likely they have a foxtail up their nose. Vet for that also. But I'm sure there's other plants in other states that have issues with dogs, but burrs and things in the fur. I check fur, I check pads, like the fur in between the pads for burrs and foxtails and plants and stickers and all that. My dogs are all short-haired dogs, so I don't need to worry as much as anyone with a long-haired dog.
Cool. Follow-up from Bob was that she's considered a vegan. It says it causes her problems. The sulfur dioxide causes problems like face swelling. That's got to be histamine.
It's probably something else.
Yeah, my guess is it's red wine. Preferably, I mean, I would say go to white, and if white doesn't work, go to champagne. And if she's drinking champagne and having it, it's probably an alcohol reaction. Normally, what I've read in the literature is about 90 to 95% of sulfite reactions are histamines. So histamines in red wine will sometimes trigger migraines or headaches in some people. Alcohol will trigger migraines in some people. I mean, alcohol does have different effects physiologically on a lot of different people. Chanda used to be able to drink like a fish, and
not anymore.
unfortunately, not anymore. Another good question from the Leontes.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, Heidi and Jerry, what's up? It's good to see you guys. Hey, y'all, from the Leontes. How do we train our 13-week-old German Shepherd puppy not to bite? Okay. Oh, this is a great one. She's got it.
It's different for every puppy. Every puppy I've ever had is like a vicious shark crocodile monster. So I've dealt with it with probably 20 different puppies in the last, I don't know however long. There's different methods, and some methods only work for certain dogs. So the first thing that, she's gonna knock the table over. Yeah, she's knocking the table over.
We got a black lab underneath. And black labs can be some trouble.
She'll clear the whole thing. So, one of the methods that's recommended is to yelp when they bite you. That works for some dogs. For other dogs, the yelping actually gets them more excited and they'll bite more. So you got to kind of test it out. Yelping, pulling away and withdrawing, like going like, ow,
ow,
and then just giving it at least 30 seconds of just ignoring the puppy and just being boring and dead and lame, and they'll start to think, oh God, every time I do that, this boring, horrible thing happens.
And that's how dogs and wolves in the wild learn bite inhibition. With their
biting their siblings.
They bite their siblings go, ow! And they go, oh, okay, well, that hurts my sibling. I eat a rabbit, I don't do that to my siblings. That's how they learn that.
So for dogs, when you yelp, when they bite you, they get activated and it makes them like more crazy and more bitey. I also try a quieter type of reaction, like a ow, and then a pulling away. Because for Kestrel, she was a monster as a puppy. If I yelped, she'd be like, "Party's on!" like, but if I go ow and like kind of curl up in a ball, she would stop and look and go, oh, that was a weird reaction. And it would just make her think just a little bit. And over time of doing that for months and months until your dog has all of its adult teeth in, which is like a long way down the road for you, you just got to try things out. Kestrel was actually so bad when she was really young that I actually had to give her timeouts. So I would have to just pick her up and put her in the crate until she would calm down. The crate was her happy place, so it wasn't necessarily a punishment, but it taught her to self-regulate her own excitement, because usually they just get really excited and then they just get bitey and they can't control it. So if nothing that you are doing works and your dog is still getting activated and more biting, try giving them like a couple minute timeout. Just wait till their energy level kind of relaxes and then let them out again and try again and just repeat. Find something that works a little bit and repeat it over and over until you're blue in the face.
Here's the thing that I never thought about, and when I saw Chanda do it, I'm like, that's effing genius. That is genius. She uses bite inhibition, the ow, ow. Remember, it's ow, ow, ow. If the dog reacts to it and it's ow, kind of like moving away. She started doing it with anything the dog shouldn't have its mouth on. Like the dog would go after a sock, or would have, grab this or grab a shoe, and she's like, "Ow, ow!" And the dog would be like, in fact, Kestrel just looked at me. But I thought that was like black magic effery.
I'll still do it today if I'm letting her sniff and she's pulling on the leash too hard. I'll be like, "Ow!" and she'll be like, "Oh, sorry."
And she's still activated. She's over there sitting on Peregrine's chair, looking over like, what?
Yeah, it's a hard phase to go through because it lasts a very long time and it's incredibly painful for the human. One thing that sometimes people recommend is to cause the puppy pain by like pinching their lip or pinching them back or biting them back. Don't do that. Don't even bother because they won't get it.
So I've got looks like Jennifer Mackey's in the house, who's of course Tommy's girlfriend, and she's just awesome. I got to meet her at the tasting room, and she was just saying that they were tasting the Pinot Blanc at J.Wilkes tasting room yesterday. They got it, they enjoyed it. That's awesome. Jake, very geeky beverage gentleman, thoughts on hops as an antibacterial and no added sulfur wine. Hops and wine, oh boy. So why do we want to make wine taste like cannabis? I guess I would prefer cannabis in my wine, to be honest. Hops taste a lot like cannabis.
Oh, they do?
Well, smell it. Doesn't it smell skunky? Kind of dank?
I guess it does.
They're related. I mean, the two, if you go back far enough, the two are related. But what I would say, though, is it'd be very difficult to make, I think, a palatable wine that was dry hopped. Certainly, you could dry hop a wine, and it would have an antimicrobial effect on it. I just don't think, as far as a flavor profile, it would be very popular in a traditionally styled wine. But that's a good question. Talking biochem, what about red wine and migraines? Hey, migraine sufferer. Tell us about your migraines, Chanda. You're gonna freak out.
What do you mean?
How many days a month?
I used to have 28 days of a level like 6 to 9 migraine a month.
What changed? How many now?
I'm ranging between 15 to 20 days per month.
What changed?
I have a very unusual sort of semi-experimental pain medication that I'm on. It doesn't treat migraines, but as a side effect, it has reduced the number of my migraines. So that's very exciting. But alcohol of all kinds triggers my migraines now, unfortunately.
If she's had like 3 good days, I'm like, honey, you've had 3 good days. You want a glass of bubbles or a gin and tonic? She's like, yay. I mean, like when she gets a drink, it's like honestly like a huge win in this family. Like it's not.
Good thing I'm not a winemaker anymore because I can't drink alcohol. Yeah, I just avoid it at this point. If my head is feeling really good, which is very rare, I'll have maybe 3 days a month where I'm like, I feel great, I feel fine, my head feels normal. I might have a couple tiny glasses of sparkling. That's about the most I can do. But if alcohol or wine, whatever triggers your migraines, your number one plan is to avoid that thing forevermore. It's unfortunate, but there's no fixing it.
So Jake asked, curious to hear about Velcorin. So Velcorin is a specific and it's about a 15-year-old chemical produced, I think, by the Bayer Corporation that sterilizes wine. And what happens when you add Velcorin? You add 1 part per million is the maximum dose. Some wines are dosed at 1/4 part, 1/2 a part, 3/4 of a part, or the full dose of 1 part per million. When you add Velcorin to a wine, what happens? It sterilizes the wine. There's no filtration, no proteins are removed, but it basically kills whatever microbes exist in the wine that are alive and makes the wine a sterile, stable product without using extra SO2. So you can back off your sulfur dioxide, you can back off on your filtration. I did a lot of research on Velcorin before I decided to use it at Clos Pepe. The Clos Pepe wines from 2005 to 2014 all had Velcorin added to them. When those two people you were mentioning in the Santa Rita Hills tend to have strong opinions on Velcorin, ask them why, and if they're honest, they'll say that they sell cross-flow filtration, which of course is a $250,000 basically option to use instead of Velcorin. So, I mean, you can cross-flow now, at the Miller Family Wine Company, I'm so lucky we own a cross-flow filtration unit. So we're not really playing the Velcorin game anymore. I like the Velcorin game at Clos Pepe because it allowed me not to have to massively filter the wine and to maintain sort of a little bit of colloidal stability and a little more, keeping a little bit more of the manoprotein within solution of the wine without stripping it due to sterile filtration, which was my other option. So for whatever those other two folks who I know who they are will say about Velcorin, it produces about 1/3. They're going to tell you that it produces methanol, and it does, but it produces about 1/3 the amount of methanol that primary fermentation does. So the question would be, okay, guys, so you're saying you would never use anything in your winery that would produce more methanol than Velcorin, right? And they would say yes, and then say you just blew it because yeast produces more methanol than Velcorin. And Adam Lee did a study personally and paid for it himself that showed full dose of Velcorin is 1/3 the methanol production of just regular wine. So not a big deal. So we don't want to get too caught up in the weeds, but that's a good question. What breeds make the best service dogs?
Well, let's see, what do they call them? The Fab Four. So that's Labrador Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, Standard Poodles, and the last one that seems like a bit of an odd one, but it's the Smooth Collies. So it's like a short-haired lassie is what those is. Some people need a little bit of a taller dog for maybe some mobility, and so the Smooth Collies can be quite tall. That works well. I personally use a black Labrador Retriever. They are very great at working with humans. That's been bred into them for a very long time. So those tend to be the easiest. They tend to be people friendly, other dog friendly. They tend to be easy to train, more calm, although not all Labradors are considered calm, but the English Labradors, which is mostly recommended. Those are the Fab Four that are the easiest, best service dog. And let me tell you, if you have an unusual breed of service dog and you're trying to gain access to the general world, it's going to be much harder than if you have some basic standard Labrador Golden Retriever. I gotta tell you, it is so easy to gain access with a black lab. Like I've literally not had a single question since I started using her about 3.5 years ago.
Because we tried, Peregrine was going for service dog.
My first service dog was an Italian Greyhound, so I got this guy to replace him, but he is genetically defective.
So am I, but she kept me, and so is he, and he kept me.
Trying to walk, well, this is when I was walking, trying to walk into a business with a little Italian Greyhound as your service dog, people look at you pretty funny, and they're like, that's not a service dog. And I said, he's a medical alert dog, and yes, he is. He is highly trained. But going out with Kestrel, my black lab, I mean, people don't even look. They're just like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
cool going.
It is kind of nice that
It's
way.
really nice. Access issues are very traumatic and traumatizing and terrible, so I really try to avoid them. I'm kind of over it.
Quick and good question from Nick. Can you talk a little bit about the new sparkling wine you're representing as wine ambassador for the Miller Family Wine Company? Where is it from? Winery, process, variety. I am so stoked to tell you that that wine is made by Norm Yost at Flying Goat Cellars, who also made all of our sparkling wine at Clo Pepe. So clearly I am not of the skill level that can make great sparkling wine. I've never tried, but sparkling wine freaks me out because the wine has to be so precise. Norm Yost has worked on 3 continents. He is a consummate professional, gentle, soft-spoken, and makes some of the best sparkling wine that really, I mean, talk about hand done, hand disgorged, hand riddled, hand bottled, hand corked, hand waxed. I think we bought either 25 or I think we only bought 25 cases, but we bought half a pallet or 1 barrel of sparkling wine that Norm did. It is, I believe, it is I want to say it is a Blanc de Blanc.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's Blanc de Blanc, 100% Chardonnay. It's 100% Sierra Madre, 100% Santa Maria Valley, and 100% Flying Goat. So even though it says, on the back label, bottled, labeled, and produced, it's Norm's wine, and when I found out that we were going to, make sure that Norm got paid, and this is what we were going to do, we were going to make a real luxury, true hand disgorged method de champenois. Really, really proud of it. So it's going to disappear really quickly. I think we're going to do 25 cases a year, and my guess is it'll be gone traditionally probably 2 weeks after it's released. Probably be a little bit longer this time, but it's bitching to go to the tasting room and see people drinking sparkling wine. Makes me incredibly happy. All right. Oh, thanks, Phil. He's saying, I can't imagine a couple better suited for each other. Bless you both. That's very sweet. Thank you, Phil. We've had moments, but we're
Been there a while.
I have a very incredibly powerful right hemisphere of my brain. Chanda has an incredibly powerful left hemisphere of her brain. I tend to be creative to a fault. She tends to be sequential to a fault. So I like to say we form one perfect brain together, me being the right hemisphere, her being the left hemisphere. And on any given day, I like to say that, a glass of wine tends to be the corpus callosum, the separation, the blood-brain barrier to keep the left and the right brain separate. But we do work well together. At least after 10 years of being together, I figured out that her entire intention was to make me a better person. And I could
Probably took you longer than 10 years.
I could bitch and moan about it, but what is it going to do? If I want to stay married, I have to become a better person, and that's why I got married in the first place. Like, you get married and you're totally cool with like the journey of becoming a better person, and then for a few years you get like bitter at your mate for trying to help you become a better person. This is my journey, at least. And then like 10, 12 years later, she's like, you're kind of being a jerk. Remember when you got married, you said you'd be willing to work on yourself? I'm like, I don't really remember that, but I think maybe there was something in my vows. And then, a couple years pass and you get a little bit better. And at this point, this is a really good question. Have I been domesticated, and how did you do it? It's kind of like a dog question.
I treated you just like I treated dog. You're a little alien creature that doesn't understand anything. No.
Any suggestions for young married women out there looking for a way to bend the will of their husband?
I don't think my way would be other people's way. I'm extremely strong in boundaries. There is no like letting people get away with stuff around me. I hold people accountable, and it's a little bit unusual in the human race these days. But I did the same for Wes. We had boundaries, and he's held accountable for all of his actions.
And thank you, Nick. I didn't tell you. It was 18 months in Tirage. So 18 months on the yeast, and it was the first sparkling wine Norm has ever disgorged using liquid nitrogen. He is actually the master of non-nitrogen disgorgement. There's so many damn words for what we do in wine. Suddenly I'm stuck in, so the disgorging, which is basically You keep the bottle upside down and you twist it a quarter of a turn every couple days for months until all the yeast gets concentrated in the down by the cap of the bottle. And then the originally champagne method de champenoise, it has a crown cap, like a beer cap on it. And then so you crack the cap and you lift the bottle up, and it basically ejects out by, just like opening a Coke, it foams out. It kicks the sediment out, but hand disgorging without liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen is bitching because you just put the bottle in the liquid nitrogen. It makes a plug of ice over the sediment, the yeast that's in the bottom of the bottle. You turn it up, and you don't even have to do it like you just turn it up. You pop the cap, and literally a bullet pops out of the bottle. That is the sediment, and you end up with beautiful, clean wine. It's amazing stuff. Cool. Let's little alien creature.
That's how I treat everyone.
Do different breeds need different amounts of exercise and stimulation, and what breeds need the most, least, or what's a healthy average for a pup?
Okay, so for puppies, as in infant dogs, there's a recommendation like X amount of minutes of exercise per X amount of weeks. You can Google that because I don't know exactly what it is. But yes, other different breeds of dogs need different things. I like to look back into the dog's history to figure out what they have been historically bred for. Some dogs are bred to curl up on laps. In this case, they're not going to need as much physical exercise as a dog, let's say a border collie, who is bred to herd hundreds of sheep in large fields, working closely with a human, but also semi-independent, running, looking, judging, evaluating, running, some more running, a little bit more running for like 8 hours a day. That dog, it's not going to be happy in your backyard all day doing nothing. That dog needs mental stimulation and physical stimulation, both. If you just take the dog for a run and you run it 5 miles a day, there's no mental stimulation in that. It needs both. So like a Labrador, obviously, they are bred initially to bring in fishing nets in icy water. So swimming is a really great physical activity for them. They do work well with humans, but they don't need many hours. They need a considerable amount of physical exercise, a nice sniff walk, something like that, and then a little bit of mental stimulation, not too much. Every dog is bred for something different. If you have a scent hound, that dog is going to want to go out and it's going to want to sniff new areas, and you're going to want to walk it on a long leash where you can follow it, it can sniff. If you have a sight hound, you'll want that dog to be able to chase things that it sees. If you have whatever it's bred for, you want to try to fulfill that need. So it might be physical, it might be a certain type of physical, it might be a certain type of mental stimulation, but you got to do something for the specific type of dog breed.
If you were going to say an example of a dog breed that needs minimal exercise, medium exercise, heavy exercise.
All right, so there's a lot of small breed dogs like a Japanese Chin or a Pug or a little, or like a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Those are going to be very low in physical exercise needs. They tend to get overheated anyway. They don't need much. So high energy would be Border Collies, top of the list,
Dalmatian.
really. Dalmatians are bred to run
30 miles a day.
30 miles trot, 30 miles a day.
And bite someone who goes after your carriage.
Yes, attack.
They're very good. They're very good at barking and biting unless you give them 30 miles
running
of
and
exercise.
biting.
Running and biting.
Yeah. It depends on the Labrador, but my English Labrador, she needs like a nice little walk around the block a day, maybe some chasing a frisbee in the backyard, not much. She's a medium, but there are some American Labradors that need a lot more than that.
If you were going to say for the average American family, what is the best dog breed, mutts included, if you were going to say, here's Joe America with 1.8 children.
Yellow Lab.
A yellow lab.
Or a golden retriever if you don't mind a little bit more hair.
I've heard you say Cavalier King Charles.
Yeah, they're amazing, but they're very difficult to find without serious heart complications. It's very, very hard.
How about mutts? Everyone says mutts live longer, they're better.
They do not. They used to call it hybrid vigor. That's a myth. The best way to get a healthy dog is to go to a responsible breeder, and that is a whole term in and of itself. They do massive health testing on both parents. That they're breeding for a purpose, not just like, oh, I've got a couple dogs and I'm just going to breed them and just sell the puppies. Like, you never want to buy a dog like that because they will be so sick and ill and terrible. Mutts also, I believe in rescuing, but you're going to have to realize that there is no guarantee of any type of genetic issues. You're never going to know. It's a total crapshoot. So if you get a dog from a bad breeder, or if you get a dog from a shelter, make sure you have some money stashed aside for, inevitable vet bills that could be gnarly. I have one here that had $60,000 worth of surgery in his first 2 years. So
that's my Porsche.
Yeah.
I really wanted a Porsche.
Kestrel, who came from an extremely responsible breeder who does massive health testing. She's breeding to produce service dogs. I mean, she's breeding for a purpose. She breeds in her home. She's very careful, blah, blah, blah. That dog's, she's been x-rayed by specialty vets to check to make sure she has hip health so she won't develop hip dysplasia when she gets older. So she's going to be just more healthy than your average dog because of all that genetic testing that she's had. So there's not really any one, breed that's healthier than the other.
All right, we're finishing up. We're going a little long tonight, but such good questions on the dog stuff. So I have one last question on wine that I'll take 30 seconds. Someone asked me how many wines do I taste a year and how many are really bad.
Oh no.
So I used to taste more wine when I used to do 6 to 7 international wine competitions a year. So I used to be on the judging circuit every month and a half, 2 months. I'd be in a competition and we would taste 300 wines over 2 days, 2.5 days, sometimes 3 days. So, I mean, I used to taste, I would probably add another 1,300, 1,400 wines on the amount of wines I tasted. Currently, my guess is I taste about 1,000 wines a year. On a regular year, outside of the COVID, I would be tasting at least 2,000. When I first started judging wine 25 years ago, we would do retain, eliminate. We would smell 20 wines in front of us and say, that one smells okay, that one smells awful. So we would kick wines out with our nose, never putting them in our mouth. And I look at 2008 as being the year that separated good winemakers from fired winemakers. After 2008, really in the United States, I don't see a lot of bad wines. I can't remember the last wine I tasted from a fresh bottle that I wrote in my notes, fire the winemaker. And I used to do that 20 times a day judging wine. Seems to me we're living in a golden age and substandard winemakers are just not hired anymore. So we've never been in a better time to drink wine. I love to evaluate wine. I love to taste as many wines as possible. But honestly, not only the wines I taste at the Miller Family Wine Company, but the wines I taste as a judge from all over the world, from 50 countries, from so many different things. There's great wine out there. You could almost just grab a bottle off the refrigerator or, bottle off, just a supermarket shelf and just assume it's just going to be delicious. So last question, which is going to be a little of a downer, but I think I read this question. I thought this is really actually important to talk about because of how important dogs are in our lives and the fact that we might have 10 to 12 dogs in a single human lifespan. The biggest problem with dogs is they don't live as long as we do. Even though if they did, parrots sometimes don't find forever homes after, people just don't take care of animals the way that they should. And this is why I wanted to ask this question. It's not an easy question. The question is, how do I know when it's time to put a dog down?
Well, I would suggest a vet for that one. I mean, vets are gonna. That's a very complicated question because are you talking about an old dog? Are you talking about a sick dog? Are you talking about an injured dog?
Do you have criteria?
Well, I'm extremely experienced with dogs, both in the veterinary area, as in that used to be actually one of my specialties, was doing all the euthanasias that came in, because most of the technicians, most humans do not want to be around an animal that is being euthanized. Like, I get it. Like, no one wants that. But I am really good at it. That's like, I'm great at it, yeah. I like to...
So if I go down before 80.
No, what I mean is that I am really good at tolerating being around animals that are sick or old and need to be euthanized for their own comfort. So I would soothe them if their owners didn't want to be there as they were going. That is what I did a lot at my job. I also have owned many, 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 many dogs throughout my lifetime, and all of them have, one by one, it was their time.
For your own dogs?
For my own dogs, I wait until they tell me. So if they're sick, if they're injured, whatever, we go to the vet. We try to get the best care that we can that is within reason of, financial responsibilities, because sometimes that can get a little crazy. And when it comes time, I care for them the best I can in their old age. And when it comes time, they usually let me know. Like, it will be clear. It's like 1 minute the dog is, okay. And then all of a sudden there is something terribly wrong and it's time and we do it. My dogs have always let me know clearly that they were ready. So that's how I do it, which is why I would suggest working with a vet when it comes to that time, because they'll be able to help you through that decision process. A lot of times vets will push for a lot of expensive care that you may not want to do, and it's really important that you just really simply say, I do not want to go that far into, cancer treatment or, something really gnarly for an older dog. And you just tell them, you just say, this is what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to support my dog until a certain point, and then I would like your support helping me know when that time is. And you can bring them in and we can talk about it. But if there's a question, just talk to your vet. They'll do what's best for your dog.
I think we've been pretty lucky in the sense that most of the dogs we put down have been 15 to 17, but man, when you put down a dog that's 5 or 6, it's
definitely more heartbreaking.
It's a heartbreak.
We had a greyhound with bone cancer. She was only 5, and again, she was diagnosed with bone cancer. We treated her as gently as possible. We did not do massive cancer treatments because it's not one that can be cured. Same with my first service dog, Oliver. He also had a type of cancer that there's nothing you can really do. So we just support them through that time. And both of them,
he was so brave.
Both of them, a thing happened, with my greyhound. She had, she burst the bone, jumping off a couch, and well, that's it. Like there's no fixing that. And, yeah, so they let me know really clearly. But a lot of people, I do speak to a lot of people that are just very unsure. Oh, he's suffering. I don't know, and you can support a dog through suffering pretty well. Everyone does some kind of suffering through death.
What do you, and I had one more question from Jennifer that I'm going to answer, but you always said that you basically allow our pet dogs to live on as long as they...
Well, I have spoke with people that actually have really great understanding of animal hospice, and they gave me a lot of education on the process of an animal dying from old age, from an illness, from an injury. And there's a lot of processes that the body does that might look very sad to us from the outside, like my dog isn't eating, or it's not, it's sleeping a lot, but that is all a natural process of the body. And what might appear to be painful or horrible to us is sometimes just the natural process that they go through. And so I really try to support them, through that process. But when shit hits the fan, we are very lucky that we can end their suffering, and I do it every time.
All right. So we're going to finish up, make sure Jennifer Mackey asked thoughts on things that you can put in your wine that would remove the sulfites. Yes, it's called hydrogen peroxide.
There's things that you can buy online that are supposed to do that, and I cannot imagine that they actually do any. I think it's a waste of money.
It is. First of all, free SO2 when you aerate it or you put peroxide in it. If you want to remove sulfur dioxide from a wine, say you're a winemaker and you're supposed to put 10 grams of SO2 in your wine and you completely screw up and put it in 100 grams. I won't say who I know who's done this, but you probably know them. To remove the sulfites, to those excessive amounts of sulfites from a wine, you can use hydrogen peroxide because it's an oxidizer. And it oxidizes because that's what happens. But it actually takes the free SO2 and puts it in a balanced state. So from a chemical perspective, it's still there. Everything is still there. It's a matter of how you want to play it. So first of all, if anything says, take this device and put your wine through it and the SO2 will be magically destroyed. Bah. SO2, when properly used in winemaking, which is 99.99999% of all wines, is completely inert and will not hurt the human body. So the last thing I would ever worry about, I would worry about alcoholism before I worried about SO2. I would worry about driving before I worried about SO2. I would worry about almost anything before I worried about SO2. So don't fret too much about it. Yes, I mean, if you do have asthma and you drink a bunch of wine and you find yourself feeling a little short of breath, I mean, it would have to be a fairly incredibly intense amount of asthma or chemical sensitivity. But and then let's see, we've got one other. I saw one cool thing that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll close up. We had that. No, I think that's about it. Let's see, we've got... Thank you guys all so much for hanging out with us tonight, asking some really good questions about dogs. I hope you learned something about dogs. We're going to have another show on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We're going to go back to the standard procedure. And then on Friday, I'm really looking forward to having Sonoma County winemaker David Vergari. And he was also down in Temecula for a while at Thornton Winery. He's a sparkling winemaker. And we're going to focus a lot on the nuts and bolts of winemaking for our home winemaker and small production winemaking teams. Anyone who wants to learn how to make wine, I want to make Fridays 5 to 6 all about, if you've never made wine or you're curious about how making wine, we're going to break down the process of how wine is made with a spectacular, funny, humanist, lovely winemaker, one of my favorite people in the world. People call him Elvis. I still don't quite understand why, but I'm going to ask him that question, why he's always been called Elvis. It's a really amazing brain. He's an amazing human being, and I'm really looking forward to spending some time. Thanks again for being here tonight, and really appreciate all of the time and effort. Thank you to my beautiful wife, Chanda. Thank you to Peregrine for hanging out with us this whole time. Are you a good boy? Can I have one kiss on the nose? Can I have a kiss?
He wants to climb onto you. See, look.
What's better than a kiss? A big hug. Can I have a big hug?
Oh.
Okay, you guys take care of each other. Treat all the humans in your life as if they were cute dogs. I hate to say that, but man, I think we probably treat dogs better than we treat people. Take care of each other. Find someone in your family, in your neighborhood, maybe someone you don't know. Reach out to them, make sure that they're okay. Realize we're all in this together. Trust science, trust flourishing. Let's move on. Wear a mask when you're in public. Be careful. Take care of yourself so we're all in this together next year so we can continue to have these fabulous conversations. Thanks again to everyone involved, including Chanda. Hope you learned something about dogs, maybe even a little something about wine. We'll see you on Wednesday when we go back to our regular wine-focused show. All right. Have a great night, guys, and I appreciate all of your help. Thanks. Bye. I don't know why we